Hey, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Lila Rose Show. You guys, oh my goodness, this has been a crazy news week, and I haven't done a live here in just a couple weeks. So I'm excited to be back. I'm sorry in advance for the scratchy voice. Those colds are going around, and I've got one of them, but there's a lot to break down today. And I think this story of the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively competing lawsuits, and just Hollywood in general, crisis PR firms, Me Too, sexual harassment, all of this, I think the point that I have not seen being made, but I think that absolutely needs to be made, is that all of this could be avoided, or 99.9% of it could be avoided if we did some dramatically different things in how we approach entertainment as a country. So I'm going to unpack this in today's live, share my take on this and why I think it's important. Quick content warning. Obviously, this podcast episode is going to include conversations about from movie clips from, It Ends With Us, and different allegations about sexual harassment, about lawsuits, all of this. So if you're going to be listening to this later on podcast app and you're with kids, this might be an episode to save for when you don't have kids in the car, because it is a bit of a content warning. I'm not showing any sex scenes or anything like this, obviously, on the show, but a bit of a content warning. All right. Now, as we go, I'm also going to be keeping an eye on the chat. Hi, TK O'Rourke. Thanks for joining. Hi, Nilda. Thanks for joining. Hello, the artsy nurse. Thanks for joining. You guys, as we go, if you want, put any comments or questions in the chat, and I will be keeping an eye on the chat during this episode. All right, so lots to unpack here, but I wanted to start with the latest allegations coming out of these huge controversy that is engulfing Hollywood right now. You've probably seen the headlines, but to give you the quick rundown, Blake Lively had a huge story out in the New York Times just a few weeks ago where she was suing, along with Ryan Reynolds, her husband, her co-star and the director of the film that she was just in called It Ends With Us, and she was suing him for sexual harassment as well as retaliation against her for being concerned about sexual harassment by trying to, quote unquote, bury her and destroy her reputation in the news media. So you guys might have heard of this big news article from the New York Times. We can bury anyone inside a Hollywood smear machine. It says private messages detail an alleged campaign to tarnish Blake Lively's reputation after she accused Justin Baldoni of misconduct on the set of It Ends With Us. And the article actually included texts that they got access to from the publicist for Justin Baldoni, him in responding to these different publicists and talking about how they wanted ultimately Blake Lively's reputation to not look good in the media. They wanted her to look like a bully. They wanted her to look like this. So that comes out. That was a huge story in the last few weeks. Then just a couple weeks ago, Justin Baldoni has a response, and he has a lawsuit out, and he sues Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds back for $400 million, claiming defamation and claiming that they were using their own lawsuit to try to take control of It Ends With Us, the movie, make it their own thing, and basically destroy his reputation. And as part of his lawsuit back, you guys, if you might have seen this, I think it came out just this last weekend, or was it the weekend before, but in just the last week, Justin Baldoni put up a website with all of these detailed text messages and emails and all of these things, communications between him and Blake Lively, trying to prove that based on his text messages and these communications, that Blake Lively was not the victim of sexual harassment at his hands. And in fact, Blake Lively was trying to get control of his movie. And that's what this is all about. So a lot of opinions are flying around on social media. And I want to share with you a little bit of background about why I feel like I have a bit of a different perspective on this. All right. So first of all, Justin Baldoni is somebody that I've known about before this movie and before this big scandal, because he was on a pretty popular pro-abortion podcast that he co-hosted with a woman named Liz Plank, who's a very pro-abortion activist, and he was her co-host for a few years. And I remember seeing clips of this come through my feed. They would be talking about abortion, talking about how abortion was necessary. They'd be telling me stories about how abortion is great. So that's how I had first noticed Justin Baldoni even existed, was that he was actually promoting pro-abortion talking points on this podcast. This was all before It Ends With Us, all before all of this. And I also noticed that Justin Baldoni was this kind of self-identified male feminist, that he was kind of writing and putting out all of this content about how he wants to understand men and help men be basically in touch with their feelings and in touch with their emotions. So some of that might actually be not a bad idea. I'm not saying it's, men should not be in touch with their emotions and that men should not, he's very rejecting toxic masculinity. Like there's some goodness there, right? But obviously promoting pro-abortion talking points on a podcast, not okay. And then his whole brand of I'm a male feminist, I'm so trusted because I'm a male feminist, it does reek a little bit of potential inauthenticity, which is why I think when people first saw the lawsuit coming out from Blake Lively, a lot of people were taking her side. Now, I want to also share another piece of important context that I haven't really seen many people talking about with this whole drama that's unfolded. As you guys might remember, there was a whole franchise called 50 Shades of Grey. You guys remember that? It was really dark, really horrible, a lot of sex scenes, a lot of violent sex scenes. And it was this phenomenon in Hollywood where millions of people went and watched these movies and read these books and were so excited, and they loved this romance story of an abusive man controlling and abusing Anastasia, this young woman, and this whole story, which just captivated all these people, basically glamorizing sexual violence. That's what it did, right? And so you look at It Ends With Us, this movie that just came out. And by the way, it performed really well at the box office. It actually outperformed expectations, I think. I think the film It Ends With Us with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, it cost like $25 million to make, and they made, I think, over $300 million in the box office. So the film is commercially a success. But It Ends With Us, I think one of the dynamics that, and this is all connected, by the way, to the lawsuits, let me get there. One of the dynamics was that It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, the book, is about domestic violence. It's about, as they abbreviate it, DV, domestic violence between ultimately a married couple, a man abusing a woman, and about how this woman, in the movie it's Blake Lively, says, no more, I'm going to leave you because you're abusing me. And now that I have a child, I want to especially leave you to protect my child. So Sony Pictures was the distributor for It Ends With Us. And if you look at some of the debate between Baldoni and Lively, you can see one of the issues was that Sony was kind of figuring out how to market this film, because It Ends With Us is about domestic violence. But people don't want to go to see a movie about domestic violence. They want to go see a rom-com. They want to go see a romance flick, or God forbid, they want to go see a 50 Shades of Grey movie that straight up glamorizes domestic violence and makes the abuser kind of a hero who can, be reformed by the woman, and they can all make it up together and be happy in the end, right? Which is the 50 Shades of Grey narrative. Not so with It Ends With Us. In It Ends With Us, there's a clear bad guy, Ryle, who's played by Justin Baldoni. And there's a clear good guy, Atlas, who is the other male co-star to Blake Lively. And Blake Lively is the clear victim, playing Lily Bloom, where she is abused by Ryle, and then she has the courage to say no. So Sony, in deciding how to market this film, is thinking, okay, we can't just make this straight up a domestic violence film, because those typically do not sell in movie theaters. It's kind of a tough watch to go and see a movie about domestic violence. You want to do something that's a little more fun, a little more light. And so one of their marketing approaches was to kind of girlify it a little bit, trying to make it more about women's empowerment, Lily Bloom, that's the whole wear your florals. So some people I've seen have been criticizing Blake Lively for saying, wear your florals, and having these more positive promotions in the press. And then Justin Baldoni comes in saying, no, it's about domestic violence. The reality is that's less about Baldoni and Lively and more about Sony Pictures, who knew that they needed to find an angle for this film that was less about hardcore domestic violence and more about romance, love, and women's empowerment. So all that to say, and the reason that this matters is all of these dynamics that I'm talking about ended up getting weaponized in these competing lawsuits between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And all of this is just, chaotic, right? So Justin Baldoni is now countersuing Blake Lively. And I want to look at some of the allegations against each other. But a big spoiler alert here, guys. I am not taking a clear side in this video. I don't think, personally, my opinion is we do not have enough information to take a definitively clear side that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are fully in the wrong and Justin Baldoni is fully in the right, or Justin Baldoni is fully in the wrong and Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are fully in the right. I don't think we have enough information. I think there's a lot of information that shows problematic things with both parties. And I also think that the bigger issue here is the one that I'm going to get to, which is about a massive institution-wide problem with Hollywood that even makes this drama possible. So we're going to get to that. But I want to unpack quickly some of these allegations to show you, quite frankly, why I don't think the internet or us have enough information to make a final conclusion on this matter. And I think they're going to be litigating this, it sounds like, or settling it outside of court, and they can do that. But I know that the internet, I know that it's so easy to want to pick a side and say, this guy's bad, this guy's good, or this guy's good, this guy's bad. But the reality is there's always a lot more to these stories, and we don't have all the evidence. We have the evidence that Justin Baldoni released on his website, and then we only have what Blake Lively has in her lawsuit, but we don't have all of the footage from the set. We don't have, Blake Lively's presentation of all of the text that she might want to show. There's a lot that we don't have. There is a lot we have, but there's a lot we don't have. So let's take a look at some of the scenes from this movie and some of the allegations that were made. And I want to start with the kind of key scene that introduces these two characters and it ends with us. So this is where Blake Lively, playing Lily Bloom, meets Ryle, her co-star, played by Justin Baldoni, who ends up being the abuser in the film. And this is their big meet cute, or their big scene here, okay? So let's go over to that clip here. I'm going to say hello to the chat. Black is saying Team Blake all day. Okay, I get it. We have different teams. Casey says 50 Shades wasn't about violence. Stop saying that. It was about dominance and S&M, sexual satisfaction. Well, S&M is about violence in sex. Like, that's the whole, what it means is that it's violent acts of sex that lead to sexual satisfaction according to those people. And I think that's extremely dark and wrong. And it was about domination of this guy who basically lured in this powerful, wealthy man who lured in this young woman. Anyways, we're not going to litigate all of that here. But we're going to get to this scene. Okay, this is the big scene where Justin Baldoni meets Blake Lively for the first time, playing Ryle and playing Lily Bloom on the scene on the rooftop of It Ends With Us. Now, before we play this scene, guys, I want you to just think about real life. Think about your own experiences. Think about the experiences of your friends and family. Think about all the stories you know of people who have met each other for the first time and are dating. You meet somebody, very beautifully, providentially, maybe like, at an event, and then you start to fall in love. You meet someone at a wedding, and think about the first conversation you might have with that person, right? This is that first conversation, supposedly, that Lily Bloom has with her love interest, Ryle. And look how Hollywood, and look how Colleen Hoover in It Ends With Us does the scene. Let's play it.
Oh, no, I think I'm done. Can't top that. That was both sexy and disturbing.
Okay, just shock me. Say,
so
we
you can pause really quick.
Or
you can rewind really quick. So they just met for the first time on the rooftop. He said he's a neurosurgeon. She laughs. He's like, no, I really am. She's like, oh gosh. He says he saw a little boy die in an emergency room and he chokes up. She's like, oh gosh. Then all of a sudden she says to him, like, one of her first times having sex was with a homeless man. We can play this really quick. So we can go to that part.
I once read that maraschino cherries stay in your stomach for like 7 years. Or cause cancer, I forget which.
I think you can fast forward a little bit. So she's talking about random facts.
But they're pretty gross. What was that of? I didn't mean to, but was it a woman or man? It was a
lot
chair.
Of people were
wasn't
saying
it?
This is a very awkward scene.
Yes. So what floor you live on?
You first.
Do you want to fast
What do
forward?
you do for a living?
I think there's a part where she says, just kind of opens up and says.
It's terrible. I'm sorry. No.
Kissing on the mouth. Why haven't I seen you before?
But also because I don't live here.
What's
So
your
there's
name?
a part where
Lily.
one of the
You?
first things he says to
Ryle.
her.
Ryle, what?
Kincaid.
You just made that up just now.
Why would I make up last name? What's
We
your
can
last
pause
name?
it. So there's a part right here where, again, it's like a 3-minute scene, but early on in the scene, he basically says, I want to have sex with you. He just says it to her and she's like, oh, okay. But that's his like pickup line, right? And already you see like the Hollywood narrative here. It's all about sex. It's all about like trying to create this like innuendo and this steaminess. And they just baldly put it out there. She's talking about having sex. He's talking about having sex. They just met each other. And this is the meet cute. Like, this is the romantic scene where they're supposed to fall in love. And this is how they ran the scene. So I think one of the immediate takeaways of It Ends With Us, both the book and the movie, and the immediate takeaway of this scene is this unnatural, unrealistic, quite frankly, framing on hardcore sexual activity. Like, let's just make this about sex. Let's not make this about being cute, getting to know each other, meeting, having this kind of interesting exchange. No, it goes right to like raw, cold, carnal, like, I want to have sex with you. This is not realistic, okay? I mean, people listening, you guys can tell me in the comment section, maybe you've run into in the dating pool somebody that was this bald and this aggressive and this ridiculous straight up in a few minutes of meeting them. But typically speaking, this is not the way that people meet each other, and certainly not the way that people fall in love, right? So I'm bringing this up because already what we're seeing in It Ends With Us, and this is something that nobody's talking about in all of these lawsuit conversations and sexual harassment conversations, is the film itself is definitively, in my opinion, a flaming dumpster fire of innuendos and nonsensical scenes like this one. And then later on, you're going to see in the film, if you watch it, which I don't recommend you necessarily watch it, there's a sex scene. So Blake Lively, a married woman with 4 children, Justin Baldoni, a married man with, I think, 2 or 3 children, are having a sex scene in this movie, right? And they're like full on having this intimate scene together, right? For the whole world to see, presumably, when the movie is released. So already, I just want to zoom out, guys, on the context here. The fact that Blake Lively is saying there was sexual harassment, and Justin Baldoni is saying, no, you were, inappropriate, Blake. All of this, it's like you guys were simulating sex on camera for millions of people to see when you were married. So what is the lesson to learn from this? One of the lessons to learn from this, and this is one of the bigger points I want to make with this show today, is if you play with fire, you get burned. You play with fire, you get burned. There is a reason that in the porn industry, abuse is a regular part of porn productions. That abuse inevitably ends up being part of porn productions. And I would argue that porn, period, is self-abuse. Creation of porn is self-abuse. And the creation of porn with another person is abuse of them, whether you're the male or the female. But inevitably, there is boundaries that are crossed. Inevitably, there is consent that is not given. This is commonplace in the porn industry. It should not surprise us that in Hollywood, when they are literally simulating sex scenes between married people, like that are married outside of the movie, that presumably love their spouses and love their families, that there are going to be boundaries that are very easy to cross. And there will be boundaries that will likely get crossed because you are literally actively crossing boundaries on film for the whole world to see. So if we now break down some of the allegations that were made by Lively against Baldoni, I want to get into this because I think it does speak to this larger point that I'm making here. So I talked about the meet cute when Baldoni and Lively first meet, about how, sex scenes are part of this movie. But I want to go to a couple of the specific allegations between Baldoni and Lively. So Megyn Kelly, who has a lot of great reporting on different things, she had a take, and I'm going to share with you part of her take and also part of the video that she watches. Now, I have a slight disagreement with Megyn, but I think that she has, a lot of good things to say. Megyn, I'm going to show you in this clip, she's talking about Baldoni's suit against Lively. And one of the things that Lively said was sexual harassment that Baldoni did was that in a scene where they were slow dancing, he improvised off script and added in steamy kisses, added in conversation that was not part of the script. They were supposed to just do a slow dance for like a minute. Justin Baldoni, as the director, made it 10 minutes long and was like talking to Lively and was saying all this stuff and was like kissing her and smelling her. And after the fact, Lively said she told Justin Baldoni, this was inappropriate. I didn't like that. I don't like that. Please don't do that again. Now, this is not why Lively sued Justin. She later on sued Justin because she believed Justin, in addition to doing that, retaliated against her to try to destroy her reputation online by hiring this PR firm, which is a fact. He did hire a PR firm and he did try to show her out to be the bad guy with his PR firm. Now, he would argue that was the right thing for him to do because she was the bad guy. That's Justin's response. And then he also responds by saying, hey, I wasn't in any way harassing Blake Lively. This was me just being in character and, smooching her basically, okay? So I want to show this scene, guys, because again, we're kind of getting in the weeds here, but I do think it matters. And we're going to hear as part of Megyn Kelly's take on this and how I disagree. But this is the scene where Lively is saying Justin Baldoni went too far. And Justin Baldoni is saying, no, this is me just doing my thing, creating great film right here. All right. I'm going to take a quick look at the comments before we show this clip. So Jason Bourne says, Casey, it's still violence. Don't be naive. He's talking about 50 Shades of Grey. I agree. Completely agree with that. AL says, this is why doing sexual scenes, even as an actor, is immoral, especially when married. Bingo. Totally agree. Whether you're married or not married, because that's someone else's spouse or future spouse, and you don't have a right to their body, and certainly not to play out sex scenes in front of an audience. Like, that's wrong. So that is a larger point to make here. But Black is saying he clearly made her uncomfortable in that scene. Okay, let's watch the scene now. We're going to play this, and we're going to hear a little bit of the lovely Megyn Kelly's commentary on this too.
You may remember that one of the key allegations in her complaint against Justin Baldoni was as follows, okay, from paragraph 48 of her complaint. She writes, on another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Ms. Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck as he said, "It smells so good." None of this was remotely in character or based on any dialogue in the script, and nothing needed to be said because, again, there was no sound. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Ms. Lively with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles. When Ms. Lively later objected to this behavior, Mr. Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." Well, guess what? TMZ has gotten its hands on that video, and you can hear Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni interacting as themselves, knowing that this is all on video and that this is going to be used to create this dance scene. And no such moment is shown. Just
Okay,
watch it.
So pause here.
Watch it.
So Megyn Kelly, she gives the background here, does a great job of that. She says, no such moment is shown. I actually disagree. I think what you're about to see is actually exactly what Blake Lively alleged against Baldoni. Now, that doesn't mean Blake Lively was in the right. And it doesn't mean that it was completely fair that she qualified that as straight up sexual harassment, because again, the lines are blurred. The boundaries are already blurred. These guys are simulating sex on camera for millions of people to see. So it's kind of weird to be alleging sexual harassment against a co-star when your job in this movie is to do sexual things on camera with them, right? Now, in Blake's defense, and I would argue, is she's right. The letter of the lawsuit is right in that this scene did not call for kissing. It did not call for talking. And it was only supposed to be like a minute long. And apparently Baldoni, the director, he had the power, made it go for 10 minutes. And he was doing all of this conversation with Blake, kissing her, doing all of this stuff. We can take a quick look at it.
Oh my gosh, we don't shut up.
And Emily and I have we have these moments where
Staring. You just stare.
literally we've done it for like 5 minutes. it's like,
So they're talking about their spouses right
it's
now.
literally
I'm talking about their spouses.
each other and like
I
time.
found a sociopath.
It's like they know.
time
They,
stops.
yeah.
But, like,
Can we pause it really quick here?
that's just
Actually, sorry guys, I need to say this. This is important. This is important. Why am I showing you this to you guys? Not just trying to burn your eyeballs. This is important. This is real life footage of Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively acting super awkward with each other because they're doing a slow dance, kind of sultry scene, well knowing they're married to other people. They're talking about the other people they're married to, and they're both, you can see, uncomfortable with the fact that they're married to other people, but they're acting like they're married or they're in love with each other. So already it's a red flag, but we can keep watching.
How it's been for us from the beginning.
No, we're like, oh my God, there's not enough time.
And they score again.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, I forgot to tell you something else.
I think that's cute. You guys are really cute.
I think it's more than cute.
Okay, so here's Baldoni getting all nosy with her.
Acting like
And Lively's like, what are you doing? Why are you
nose
putting
is
your
so
nose on
big.
mine? He's like clearly uncomfortable.
hoping that we could address this. It's not too late. Just gotta shut down. We gotta call an insurance month and just deal with
It's like
that.
trying to change
And
the
then,
subject.
deal with your
God.
big nose.
Just kidding.
Okay, this is the part that
Okay, there. Okay, so he
Baldoni
puts
was
his
very upset about.
puts his like
Excuse me, Lively.
head in her neck.
So you can pause it, and you can see Lively's like, ugh. Okay, this made it into the lawsuit of Lively against Baldoni, where she's like, what in the world? And afterwards, she told Baldoni, don't do that. So just to be clear, Blake Lively, there's no evidence she was going to sue Baldoni over this scene. She chose to sue Baldoni after she felt he retaliated against her for being upset about this scene later on by hiring the public relations firm to smear her in the media, right? But apparently on set, she told Baldoni afterwards, hey, I was uncomfortable with that. Please don't do that. Do not improvise, sexual or like romantic movements with me that are not in the script. Let's make sure it's in the script and we agree upon it in advance, because otherwise it makes me very uncomfortable. And apparently Baldoni agreed to that. And that's recorded. That's not somebody's opinion. That's recorded because she actually told Baldoni this. This is in writing during the filming. And this is that big infamous meeting that she and Ryan Reynolds had with Baldoni and I think his other producer. And they sat down and they talked about the demands where Baldoni's like, or Lively was like, don't do this anymore, Justin. You need to not improvise any sort of romance with me. It has to be scripted. Okay. That's pretty reasonable in my view. That being said, the whole thing is unreasonable because they are married people simulating sex for millions of people to see. They are clearly uncomfortable with it. They are clearly feeling that boundaries were crossed in Lively's case in particular. And clearly the whole thing is a smoking dumpster fire, like I was saying earlier. Okay, I'm going to take a quick look at the chat and we'll keep going here. Cynthia Johnson says Team Baldoni. I get it, guys. There's Team Blank, there's Team Baldoni. I think that there can also be just Team Truth or Team Virtue where we're like, guys, we don't have to play Hollywood's game. Hollywood's game is they want our attention, they want our eyeballs, they want our likes, they want our clicks, they want us to go watch their movies in theater and pay money for it. The reality is Hollywood at large is a disaster. Hollywood at large today is selling smut and they're presenting it as art. And that's really, I think, one of the end conclusions of the whole It Ends With Us controversy is that if this sexual innuendos, sex scenes were not in the movie, would Blake Lively have ever filed a claim against Justin? Would there ever have even been a place for a lawsuit? Would there ever have even been the drama that we are seeing now? And I would argue, no, there wouldn't have been. I'm not saying they wouldn't have fought about something else. I'm not saying that it's impossible for people to sexually harass each other without it also being in the movie. Of course, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's a perfect firestorm. You play with fire, you might get burned, all right? There's one more thing I want to share about the allegations between Baldoni and Lively because it's connected to this bigger point I'm making about boundary pushing, about indecency, and about just the smut that is in Hollywood right now. And this is a voicemail, and I think Baldoni released this thinking it would vindicate him. This is a voicemail from Baldoni to Lively. It's a voice note, like you can do that on iPhone. And he released this. And it's him sending it to Lively at like 2 a.m. in the morning. And they were going back and forth via text about the different scenes because she was a producer. This is also a point that a lot of people are missing because they're like, Lively was taking so much control of the movie. She was a big name producer on the movie. Producers sometimes have creative calls even over the director, depending on how it's set up, right? So this idea that Lively was butting her way in there, she had no creative control, she had no creative abilities, that's not true. I mean, objectively speaking, she was a producer on the film, and she also was using her connections to bring in people like Taylor Swift, and Baldoni hired her and let her be a producer specifically because he wanted those connections, he wanted that clout. So for him to then not want Lively to give her opinions and even make some demands about how it was going to go, I think is unrealistic. But that being said, let's take a listen to some of this 2 a.m. voice note that Baldoni sent to Lively, his co-star, and he released this thinking it would vindicate him against sexual harassment claims.
It is 2 in the morning. Hopefully this does not wake you up. Whew. Wow, there's so much I want to say to you, and I hope that we can FaceTime or see each other in person soon and get to talk more. But I'm just going to send you a few thoughts, and hopefully it's not going to be more than a few minutes, but I don't have the best track record. I don't think either one of us have the best track record for our voice memos. I want to start with an apology. Man, reading the second part of your message, my heart sank, and I'm really sorry.
Can you pause it really quick? Excuse me. Okay, you guys, this is a 2 a.m. voice note. And Justin's like, hey, Blake, I hope we can FaceTime soon. Like, it sounds inappropriate. I'm just going to put that out there. I think it's inappropriate. In addition, he's like, I need to apologize to you. What's he apologizing for? Well, apparently Blake had sent him a boatload of messages basically saying, listen, I have creative ideas. Trust me, I'm a good creative collaborator. Listen to my ideas. There's that infamous text that she sent saying, I'm like Khaleesi, the queen, and I've got creative ideas. Like she's kind of defending herself to him. Like, I have good ideas, Justin, listen. And the reality is, she shouldn't have to say that to Justin because she's a producer on the film and she is a huge star. And she should be able to come in, even just as an actor, and bring her creativity to the script, but certainly as a producer. So I already see the dynamic, like my spidey sense went off when I was reading about this, because the dynamic to me was that Justin was pretty, high on his own supply. He was like, I'm the director. I've got Blake. She's now my underling. She's my co-star. I get to decide her lines. Like this is, and so but then he also is engaging her because she's saying, hey, listen, I've got ideas. Like, use my ideas, please. And so he's like, okay, Blake, I'm so sorry I didn't use your ideas. Like I'll send you a very, sultry 2 a.m. voice note. It all speaks to me a very inappropriate dynamic. And I'm not fully blaming Baldoni for it because I'm not saying Lively didn't have better, if she had better boundaries, maybe this wouldn't have happened. And maybe, her approach to this could have certainly been improved. But the reality is already the dynamic is weird, right? Because Lively should be able to tell Baldoni, hey, these are my opinions about the script. I'm the actor. I'm a producer. I'm also, bringing in huge talent for this, myself and other people included. And Baldoni should be professional with her and be like, hey, like that idea. I don't like this one. Let's talk about this more. But I think there was this weird dynamic between them where Baldoni was sort of, dismissive arguably of Blake and like, I'm the man, right? Blake is like, please don't be dismissive of me. And then Baldoni gets all personal and like suggestive with her, like, hey, it's 2 a.m. Let's FaceTime. It's just over the top. So I can see the case for why Blake would have thought this is ridiculous and over the top. And I can also see the case where Baldoni would have thought, I tried so hard to placate Blake. I even sent her 2 a.m. voice notes. Why is everyone mad at me, right? I can see both sides of their story in this interaction. But I think the bottom line of this interaction is a lack of professional boundaries, a lack of professionalism. And I can understand why, again, all of the drama ensued, because when you don't have good boundaries, personally and professionally, crazy stuff can happen, especially between a married man and a married woman. We'll listen to a few more minutes and then we'll go to the most important point of all, which I have yet to make, but we're going to go to that next. So let's finish making the voice note. Oh, before we do the voice note, we got to thank our sponsor. We're going to do that. So stay with me. Every once in a while, I find a small business that I fall absolutely in love with. And that's why I'm so excited to share We Heart Nutrition with you guys. WeHeartNutrition.com is a vitamin and supplement company that provides the highest quality, research-backed ingredients, customized and optimized to help you be healthy. What I also love about We Heart Nutrition is that this is a family-owned company. And they're not just any family-owned company. This is a company that shares your values. And they donate a full 10% back of all of their revenue to pregnancy resource centers to help moms and babies in need. We Heart Nutrition customizes their vitamin packages specifically for your state in life. So whether you are premenopausal or postmenopausal, whether you're looking to conceive, help improve your fertility, whether you're pregnant, and this is a great prenatal vitamin, or you're postnatal. Plus, I'm very excited to share this with my husband. Now We Heart Nutrition has come out with their first line of men's vitamins. And if you order today at WeHeartNutrition.com, get your vitamins, you can get 20% off using the code Lila. And if you spend at least $50, you will get a free signature bamboo capsule vitamin box, which is very cute. I have one myself. So go to WeHeartNutrition.com today, use the code Lila at checkout to get 20% off your purchase. And when you spend $50, get that adorable free bamboo capsule box to store your vitamins in. That's WeHeartNutrition.com. Hey guys, Happy New Year, and make sure you have downloaded Hallow App. Hallow App is the #1 prayer app in the world, and it's a great way to jumpstart or deepen your relationship of prayer with God. Hallow App has over 10,000 prayers on it. It has amazing scriptural studies and deep dives into scripture. You've got Bible in a Year. You've got amazing prayers and meditations led by people like Jonathan Rumi of The Chosen. And you have sleep stories, kids content, and so much more. If you're wondering on a daily basis, how do I remind myself to carve out time for God and maybe have the guided prayer sessions or the scriptural readings or the spiritual readings that are going to strengthen your relationship with God, Hallow App is a great place to start. And if you use the link link in the description today. You can get 3 months free at hallow.com/Lila. Get 3 months free of the Hallow app at hallow.com/Lila. Okay, so you guys, I want to take a quick look at the chat and then we'll finish listening to this voice memo. All right, so Justin's got receipts from Jess. He's far from perfect, but he's much more believable here. Agree with Ale, though. The problem is people shouldn't be doing this. Again, I think Justin definitely has his data, but we're unpacking that in this thing. And I'm not saying that he's fully wrong and that Blake is fully, or he's fully right and that Blake is fully wrong, or vice versa. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. Okay, a couple other things here is Yiva says, Lila, she was not a producer. The lawsuit clearly says she threatened not to promote this movie if she didn't get a producer credit. So Blake was a co-executive producer on the film. And if you're coming in as a big name actor to a film, typically you want a producer credit, especially if you're going to be actively involved in getting other talent to join the film, like her friend Taylor Swift in the soundtrack, and you're going to be actively involved in the script and things like that. So it's pretty understandable that Blake would want that producer credit, and that part of her negotiation was like, I want to be a producer on this film. I don't just want to be your actor. That's a pretty normal course of action there for Blake. All right. Ale says, I feel like this video is a little bit misinformed and chewed in Blake's favor. Again, my position here is not that Blake is fully innocent and, Justin's all wrong, Blake's all right. As I've been saying, I think there's a lot more to the story than what has been presented in the media. And the bottom line is boundaries were crossed because they were actively already crossing boundaries in this film, doing these sex scenes as a married couple, etc. All right, let's finish listening to this voice note that we started, that Justin Baldoni left for Blake Lively at 2 a.m. in the morning. And he personally released this voice note as sort of a reason for why he was innocent of the sexual abuse charges that Blake had made against him.
For sure fell short. And you worked really hard on that. And the way you framed it and how that made you feel, I just want to say thank you for sharing that with me. That takes a lot of trust and vulnerability, and I feel really grateful that you feel safe enough to tell me that that's how you feel.
So we can pause it. I mean, my read on this is that it's very condescending, because Blake saying, these are my opinions about the film and the script and everything else. Like, you don't need to have a response from someone saying, I feel so good that you feel safe telling me this. Instead, a response could just be like, hey, I agree, I disagree, let's talk about this. But I can understand why this would have ticked maybe Blake off, because he is basically making it about this interpersonal, emotional thing between them, as opposed to, let's just talk about the script, let's just talk about the movie that we're working on. Let's keep listening.
With me, and I'm really sorry. I f***ed up. That is a fail on my part. One thing you should know about me is I will admit and apologize when I fail. I am far from perfect. I am a very flawed man, as my wife will attest. And and I'm gonna f*** up. I'm gonna say the wrong thing. I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth. I'm gonna you off probably, but I will always apologize and find my way back to center. That is one thing I can assure you of. And I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That must have felt terrible. And I will for sure do better. That was not my best weekend, and I should have given it more time. And damn right, you got great friends if that's how you felt and they knew that. And we should all have friends like that, aside from the fact that they're two of the most creative people on the planet. The three of you guys together is unbelievable. Talk about energy and just a force, all three of you.
Okay, so there's a part where he referenced her like breastfeeding. I don't know how much further. We don't have to keep listening to the whole thing. But he kind of ends it, including a line about, you've got, a baby at your breast. Like, he's kind of talking about her body. Again, this is not to say Blake Lively is above reproach, but I think this is a 2 a.m. voice note that has creepy vibes. And a lot of people are saying that, even people who are defending Baldoni, that this isn't necessarily the flex he thinks it is to release this voice note, that the whole thing speaks of a lack of boundaries. All of this speaks of a lack of boundaries. So I don't want to litigate this any further, because there was literally over the weekend a website put up by Baldoni with hundreds and hundreds of text messages, emails, documents to try to prove his case. I'm sure Lively, in a court of law, will respond with her evidence if this happens, if it goes to that. But I think the bottom line, the big picture, the takeaway for us is not just to be entertained by Hollywood imploding, right? Because I think some people are like, look, Hollywood's so crazy, they're imploding. And then some people are saying, you know, Me Too is dead, Believe All Women is dead. See, Blake Lively is making these harassment claims against Baldoni and they're false. She's just using that to hurt Baldoni and try to up her own career. I mean, there's allegations flying around right and left. But I think the big takeaway that we can learn from this entire drama is this: Hollywood is completely out of control. We have gotten totally desensitized as a society to reverence for sex, reverence for marriage, and professional boundaries when creating art. And if you play with fire, i.e. in this case sex, it is very likely that you will get burned. The solution to all of this, there is a beautiful solution to all of this, but I want to remind you guys about something that happened about, it's 60, 70 years ago. The Motion Picture Association of America used to have standards for decency in films. Did you guys know this? You probably know this if you like movies like Casablanca or It's a Wonderful Life or Roman Holiday. Remember all of these gorgeous old films, love stories, romances, Audrey Hepburn, Cary Grant, and they have these gorgeous storylines and these beautiful romances, and it's all clean. It's all stuff like It's a Wonderful Life. There is romance between the husband and the wife, and you can watch that with your kids. Roman Holiday, there is romance, but it's something you would be comfortable letting your 10-year-old watch, right? If you look back at Hollywood before, say, the 1960s, you will see a treasure trove of films that include some very intense romantic themes that do not include, that specifically exclude steamy sex scenes. And why is that, guys? There is a reason. Because back in the day, before I was born, before you were probably born, there was something in Hollywood called the Hays Code. Let's pull this up, guys, a little trip down memory lane here for those who might remember this if you were around back then, or for all of us to learn about this history. The Hays Code was a set of guidelines self-imposed by Hollywood studios regulating the moral content of films produced from 1934 to 1968. What happened around 1968, 1970s? The sexual revolution, the pornification of America, the all things go, no holds barred approach to sex and to love. Has that gotten us very far? I would argue absolutely not. It's destroyed us. But the Hays Code actually forbade profanity, obscenity, and it also forbade certain interactions between men and women on camera that were overtly sexual. So if you look back in time at some of these movies, let's pull one out, like It's a Wonderful Life. Let's pull up this clip. This is so sweet. This is one of the best movies of all time. You guys probably love this movie. This is the scene in It's a Wonderful Life where there's this lovely kiss here between George and his wife, the protagonist and his wife. Let's just watch this. It's very sweet.
Well, you tell your father you can get that for a song, and all the labor he wants, too. Half the town was thrown out of work when they closed down.
Sounds great. Baby, I knew you'd hear. Will you tell that guy I'm giving him the chance of a lifetime? Do you hear? The chance of a lifetime.
So George is, I think, a little
it's the chance of a lifetime.
Jealous in this scene, and he wants to show his love for his wife.
Now,
he
you listen
grabs
to
her
me.
and he does this dramatic kiss.
I don't want any plastic. I don't want any ground floors. And I don't want to get married ever to anyone. You understand that?
Oh, he's saying
I want to do what I want to do. And you're...
It's a little aggressive.
George.
All right. He's giving her a kiss. All right. The point here, guys, is that was as steamy as it got, okay? That was as dramatic and intense as it got. They had an argument and he kisses her and she's like, oh, George, okay? So the point I'm making here is there was a golden age in Hollywood where there were some phenomenal films that were made and some amazing actors that made their debut, where there were standards. There were actually standards in films that said, no, you don't just jump into bed together. No, you don't just do these sexual overt things on camera. No, that's not how we do entertainment. That's not how we do art. And there were standards that everyone abided by. Those standards were completely removed in the late 1960s. And today we have complete trash like this latest Nicole Kidman movie that was a huge story in just the last few months. Let's pull up an article on this story. So Nicole Kidman is obviously an A-list actor. She was just in a movie that was called Baby Girls, and it has extreme sex scenes in it. She's talking about, there's like bestiality themes in this movie. There's even an article from Nicole Kidman talking about how she's exhausted because there was so much sex in this movie. Okay. Did you guys know that UCLA commissioned a study of Gen Zers, and asked them, what do you want to see more of in entertainment in Hollywood and movies? So let's pull up this article here. Well, you guys, you can see the graphic really quick here, so you can pull that back. This is funny. I saw this for the first time like a year ago, and I thought this was very funny. All right, it says, for those who are listening later on podcast app, if you're on YouTube, you can see it. It's a coffee cup pouring coffee into an overfilling coffee cup. The hand says makers. The coffee cup says useless sex scenes. The one says pouring the coffee in. And then the bottom coffee cup that's overfilling says any show movie, meaning there is endless amounts of useless sex scenes in movies today. It's like every movie has to have a sex scene. It's ridiculous. It is not necessary at all. It needs to stop. It's ridiculous, right? Okay, let's pull up that article if you have it, Harris, about Gen Z. This is very interesting right here. And I want to say this because there's reason to hope, guys. This is a reason to hope because this has been a very dark episode about all of this drama and all of this negativity. Okay, so this is a review. Is it in this article? I think it's at the beginning of the article. All right, so this is the review, if you can zoom in a little bit here, but it says, back in 2023, a UCLA study reported that nearly half of Gen Z audience members want movies and television to include less sex. They are increasingly concerned about plot, it seems, and they insist that sex is not necessary for most plots. Gen Z, we should listen to our youngers because they are spot on. They're like, what are you guys doing? This is ridiculous. And here's the bottom line, guys. Imagine if Hollywood went back to the golden era where we actually wanted to celebrate in film beauty, romance, marriage, love, and do it in a way that, yes, is dramatic and thrilling and beautiful, but is very tasteful. Imagine if we get back to that time where we use the technologies we have today, we use obviously the new ideas we may have today, but we had some of the basic standards that Hollywood used to have in the first half of the last century. And think about the amazing art that would be created if filmmakers could no longer be lazy and just stick to inserting gratuitous sex scenes everywhere and incredibly bad script lines like the Baldoni lively scene in It Ends With Us where they just say, I want to have sex with you as they're meet cute. Imagine if writers needed to be more creative, have more ideas, and imagine if films had to be more artistic and actually show romance, show love, show falling in love in a way that was tasteful, ultimately in a way that was virtuous. It would be amazing. So I think that in the end is the takeaway from all of this drama. And I will say it unapologetically. Sex scenes do not belong in movies. Married couples like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni and his wife Emily, it is completely understandable that if you put two married people who are married to other people in a film and they're supposed to simulate sex with each other, there's going to be awkwardness. There's going to be boundaries that may be crossed. There's going to be confusion. There's going to be maybe even allegations because they shouldn't be doing it in the first place. You play with the fire, it's very likely that you're going to get burned. So the good news in all of this, guys, is that there can be a bright future for Hollywood. There can be a bright future for arts and entertainment in this country. But guess what? We are the audiences, right? We get to demand what we want to demand. We get to call for what we want to call for. So what should we be calling for? Take sex out of movies. It doesn't belong there. It belongs only in a loving marriage. And instead, bring back romance, bring back beauty, bring back beautiful descriptions, artistic descriptions of love and marriage in film like we used to have back in the day. I think the whole country would be so much better. And the likelihood of these crazy lawsuits, these crazy conflicts that have just emerged, like in this case with Baldoni and Lively, will go dramatically down. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Lila Rose Show. As always, I love doing these lives with you guys. Thank you for those in the chat. Thanks so much, Brianna, for joining. And thank you, AM. You guys, do not forget to subscribe to the show. We have found that over 90% of people who often watch the videos on YouTube are not even subscribed yet to the channel. So make sure you click that subscribe button. And if you're on podcast app, make sure you're subscribed there. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you next time.